This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Southern California Association of Governments Legislative and Communications and Membership Committee. Today's date is September 17th, 2024, and I will ask our clerk to please let me know if we have quorum, and I'll call the meeting to order.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am confirming that we have met quorum.
All right, thank you. So we'll call today's meeting to order, and the time is 8:33, and this meeting is now called to order. I would ask, please, if Ms. Buckingham would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today, if you wouldn't mind.
I would absolutely be honored. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Please join me in honoring our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so I did confirm that we have quorum. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I just have to make a few announcements before we get started. We're holding this meeting in compliance with Brown Act rules relating to telephonic video conference meetings. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. Just a reminder to reduce background noise. Please ensure that your microphone is muted when not in use. All right, now we're going to move on our agenda, and now the legislature has officially wrapped up their fairly chaotic session and entered their final recess for 2024. We have Cruise Strategies on the line with us this morning to provide an end of session wrap up to put things into perspective and for us on where policy priorities for the legislature landed. And what we have to look forward to as we prepare to head into the next 2-year cycle. Also joining us this morning, we have Mr. Rex Frazier. He's president of the Personal Insurance Federation of California, a Sacramento-based association of property and casualty insurance companies, advocating on issues of homeowners, automobile, earthquake, and flood insurance. Members include Allstate, Automobile Club of Southern California, Farmers Insurance, and State Farm. But before we hear from them, we need to observe whether we have any public comment on this item. So I will ask our clerk to please let me know if we have any public comments.
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thank you. We'll close public comment and move on. And I think I am going to start with our first speaker, Mr. Cruz. I think you're here. Or there you are. Or no, is it Nick? Who's going to do it today?
Madam Chair, we are both here.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will let you choose who will go first then. Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen and get us started here. All right. Good morning, committee. Nick Romo here with Cruz Strategies, and I'm also joined by Steve Cruz. We're going to give you.
Why don't you get started?
Yeah, we're going to give end the session update. You all know we've been updating you up throughout the year on all the happenings in Sacramento. We really do live on a cycle up here in town. It goes up and down, just like our state budget. And so where we're at now is we're in that signing period. We're waiting for the governor's decisions on nearly 1,000 bills still that are on his desk. Before we get there, just going through, give a sense of scale and scope. Over 2,500 measures were introduced just in the second year of this session, which brings us to nearly 5,000 measures introduced over the 2-year cycle. It gives us plenty of work to dive into throughout each 2-year session. After the last essentially 8 to 9 months, over 900 bills of the 2,500 bills made it to the governor's desk. And he has a significant amount of bills still left to review and decide upon in the last 2 weeks of September. As a reminder, he has to sign or veto measures by September 30th. And in California, he does have, instead of a pocket veto, he has a pocket signature. For the SCAG team, kudos to your SCAG staff. We've reviewed over 700 measures this session, reviewing them for a variety of policy issues, everything from transportation, housing, homelessness, impacts on local governments that you all know very well. We do this in our partnerships and through your expertise, and I'm particularly thankful for this committee's work on all these measures. I wanted to just give a broader sense of what the legislature was focused on in the last few weeks of session. Some of these hot topics that were really getting members to really engage and negotiate with each other, running back and forth between the halls and the Capitol. Artificial intelligence. There were about 36 bills introduced this session on artificial intelligence. A number of them made it to the governor's desk, including major regulations on the large and open AI platforms. And as you've seen in the news, lots of friction over how to regulate AI. Some don't want to regulate it at all. Some are more of a soft approach, and then there are other measures that are on the governor's desk that would really create a new regulatory regime, a really strong regulatory regime for AI. And I'll stop at this point and love Steve Cruz to jump in here. The issues around autonomous vehicles continue this session, particularly around large heavy duty trucks. We're starting to see companies roll out, pun intended, roll out new models and that will do long range trips to support logistics travels. And so there's lots of issues around whether or not there should be a human component to those trips. We know very well that there's discussions around public safety reforms. There's a whole suite of bills that are on the governor's desk as well as a proposition. This committee has reviewed and looked at issues around warehouses in the past, card rooms that impact local government revenues, and the larger discussion around reparations that divided both houses in the final days of the session.
Yeah, Nick, I would just add thank you that just one of it's a long year, but the stuff that's fresh on your mind are some of the big fights toward the end of session, and there was their fair share of controversial bills, and certainly in the rotunda this year, just as an indication, like the number of lobbyists that were standing in the hallways and working bills as compared to last year. And so I know Nick references a couple of the wildfire insurance bills, and I know we're lucky enough to have Rex Fraser on the phone, who we have our own expert, try to share some of the work by the legislature this year and more to come, hopefully. But you heard a lot about the end of session spat, between the governor and the Senate pro tem and the speaker's office. And then one of those, in part, was the casualty of a David Alvarez bill, AB 2996, which was an effort to try to bolster the state's insurer of last resort, the FAIR Plan, by allowing the insurance commissioner to bond in the event of a disaster. There would be at least some resources available for the state. And again, you got Rex on the phone. You can talk more about that. But it was unfortunate because the Senate pro tem had his own proposed insurance package that didn't move forward. And it became pretty clear as a result of the speaker not moving his package that this bill was not going to move forward. So you had a lot of that, a lot of gamesmanships, and at the end of session. And Nick, I'll kind of kick it back to you to get back on the special session. Speaking of shenanigans there, but yeah, back to you.
Yeah, it's been a cool minute since we've seen the sort of level of friction between the kind of the big threes. We call them the governor, the speaker, and the pro tem. That really kind of spilled out into the issues, kind of whether there's bills that are active or broader issues. And so it really did impact the last few weeks of session, and it's kind of an active story as we navigate both the bill signing deadlines, but also what to look forward to next year. As you know, the governor called a special session to address gasoline prices. There's a kind of an expectation of a spike in prices in California going into the fall and winter because of California's regulatory issues around the special blends for the clean air conformity. And so the governor has really again taking on the bully pulpit around bringing in some reforms to the petroleum and oil and gas industry. The assembly essentially agreed and complied with adjourning opening up and then adjourning a special session that they're going to continue on starting tomorrow, and we'll get to kind of the schedule there for them. But the Senate has yet to really acknowledge the special session, has yet to adjourn into a special session. So that's in kind of an open storyline here that we're watching in terms of dynamics between the three houses.
Yeah, and Nick, just adding that even on the bill signings, I think we've seen just one Senate bill be signed thus far. So it appears as if the governor is waiting to see if the pro tem is going to play ball with the special session before they take action. So a lot of leveraging going on. Fortunately, we don't have too many bills that are sort of stuck in that. But
yeah, absolutely. And then we'll spend more time in subsequent LCMCs going through and looking at the prospectus for 2024-25 session. But really right now what we're looking at is there can be significant turnover in both houses of the state legislature here. The election, not just on the national level, but on the local level here, we have all 80 assembly seats up for a re-election. But really underneath that, the detail there is that there's 23 open seats, and that's a combination of assembly members who are seeking office on the Senate side, and then truly open seats around folks that have either termed out or are retiring. In the Senate, half the Senate's up for re-election, but again, there's 11 open seats there. So again, some of those will be filled by current assembly members, but there will be a significant amount of new faces, at least in Sacramento standards. A lot of new faces in the State House starting in December. And so really critical for our teams to get engaged with those folks, kind of educate them on our work and the importance of what we do. and really getting in front of them and their staffs about the agenda going forward. Just really quickly, I'm going to spend too much time on all these bills, but I'm going to provide the PowerPoint to the committee. And Steve has also provided a memo, an end of session memo that we will also provide to this committee, kind of long range kind of thoughts on this, and as well as a number of bills that are on the governor's desk. I want to provide you a resource today you can share with you and your staffs about bills that we're really watching that are still active on the governor's desk. A number of housing bills related to housing elements, Housing Accountability Act. Assemblymember Alvarez has a measure still on the governor's desk that essentially prohibits a local government from essentially self-certifying their housing element. It requires HCD to go in and review that housing element before you can say that substantially complies with the Housing Accountability Act, something that this committee knows all too well. AB 1893 by Assemblymember Wicks. This was her response to issues around builder's remedy, creates new kind of restrictions as well as new kind of processes for accessing that builder's remedy. AB 2243, this is a measure that's an update to that AB 2011. That's that streamlining conversion of commercial sites into housing. This is kind of an update to that law. This one is expected to be signed as well. SB 937 by Senator Wiener. And I know I'm going through these incredibly fast. This is a measure that impacts how you charge your impact fees, unintended there, how you design your impact fees, as well as when you could charge them, and kind of locking in those rates for long-term projects. On the homelessness front, a little quieter this year, but really two big bills I want to highlight for you. AB 3093, a bill that we all reviewed in depth with the committee, as a measure that creates two new kind of income categories, that extremely low income, very low income categories that we'll have to account for in our arena work. That's a measure that SCAG did get some amendments to ease the implementation of the bill. SB 1395, it's another attempt by Senator Becker, who made it to the governor's desk to really support this interim shelters, these crisis intervention centers that should and can be built as a part of our long-term kind of homelessness to housing strategy. On the governor's desk in the transportation space, there's a measure by Senator Caballero to do another study around VMT and the impacts that's having on development. And HCD and CARB will have a role in this. And SB 960, which is Senator Wiener's bill around complete streets. This is a measure that will require Caltrans and others to take a deep look at these types of active transportation and other types of complete streets projects, and identify how our SHOP funding and other types of funding is best spent on that. This is a measure that was also amended significantly in the last few weeks of session, and I know this committee reviewed that and provided some comments to that effect.
And Nick, I would just add on the VMT bill by Senator Caballero. This is now her third attempt. Initially, she had started out with some more meaningful policy and looking at VMT and how it's impacting transportation and housing projects. It's an issue that's very close to her. Ultimately, it was scaled back to a study bill to try to do just that. And so it was under CARB initially, and then she moved it under HCD. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And I suspect she's not done with this issue, but wanted to flag the VMT bill for you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, and then just lastly, just taking a look at some key dates here. As I mentioned, tomorrow, the legislature, at least the assembly side, that is, they're coming back to Sacramento, interrupting probably some vacation plans from some of the outgoing members there, coming back to Sacramento to gavel into special session, do some oversight hearings over the next week. And then, they're really moving into some dates in October. That's their goal is to provide a sense of a unified front on early October on a piece of legislation in that special session. You heard me say a few times on September 30th being that sign or veto deadline for the governor. We'll all be waiting, and it will be probably that weekend prior will be a pretty busy few days of press releases for the governor on bills. And then December 2nd, they'll come back. The new class of legislators, the several new faces will be sworn in for an organizational session. They'll come in, gavel in, do the ceremonies and the pledges, and then they largely go home for the holidays and return back in January. So, Madam Chair, that is our update.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And good work this session. I know it was a scramble at the end there. So let me see before we move on to our next speaker, if any of the members of the committee have any questions for Nick or Steve. Don't see anybody. All right, it's going to prove to be an exciting year next year with so many new faces in the legislature. Although we're glad to have some friends from SCAG, hopefully moving on. So we'll have some friends in the legislature. So, all right. Well, thank you, Nick and Steve. Appreciate it. Go get some rest, I hope. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation, we're pleased to have Mr. Rex Frazier join us this morning. He's president of the PIFC, who is going to speak to the current landscape of insurance in the state and what's being done to address current issues. You heard there were a couple bills that didn't go through, which was problematic. Some of us were waiting for those, especially those of us who have been impacted by fires down here. Mr. Frazier represents PIFC's member companies before California state government and provides advice on legislative, regulatory, litigation, and political matters. Previously, he has served as Deputy Insurance Commissioner with the California Department of Insurance, as well as legislative staff in the California State Assembly. Currently, he serves as a member of the Climate Insurance Working Group through the California Department of Insurance. So, let's ask Mr. Frazier, do you have a presentation for us?
Good morning. I'd be happy to put up a presentation if you'd like, or I can just yammer on, whatever you would like.
If you have a presentation and you'd like to show us, let's go with that.
Sure. I guess before I get into that, that's really focused on what's happening in the executive branch. Steve and Nick, I didn't know if you wanted me to give any commentary on the 5 bills that were at issue in the legislature this year.
Yeah, that would be great, Rex. Thank you.
Because the commissioner has what he himself has termed the sustainable insurance strategy, which would be executive branch rulemaking, the legislature largely confined itself this past year to 2 areas. One is the residual market, what's called the FAIR Plan, which is not a government program. It's the insurance industry association that provides the minimum fire insurance requirements to satisfy lenders. They'll sell that policy. It's subject to Department of Insurance rate control, just like normal insurance rates are. So there were 3 bills really focused on the FAIR Plan. And then the other area the legislature felt comfortable considering, knowing that the commissioner's regulations are really in the weeds of insurance rate making and capitalization issues, deals with community mitigation issues, broader than just parcel level home hardening and defensible space. On the FAIR Plan side, Assembly Insurance Chairwoman Lisa Calderon had a bill, AB 2260. And that bill made it over to the Senate, no opposition, and was just simply held by the Senate. No explanation given, no opposition. So that was certainly unfortunate and perplexing, but I think as Steve and Nick highlighted, there were some inter-house food fights and hostage taking this year. And so that was, that Calderon bill was just simply held. There was an Alvarez bill, David Alvarez from San Diego, that someone else mentioned, AB 2966. And that was incredibly complicated bill dealing with the eventuality of what happens if there's a huge fire, the FAIR plan starts paying claims but runs out of money. And normally under that system, if the FAIR plan runs out of money, it's 100% backstopped by the insurance industry. There's no government funding again, and it's unlimited. And so if the FAIR plan has to assess the insurance companies while they're otherwise paying their claims for the policies they actually sold, this Alvarez bill was focused on really immediate liquidity, being able to go out, issue through the state infrastructure bank some debt, get the dollars in and start paying claims, and over time the carriers would be able to provide their guarantee to the FAIR plan, and that would be the mechanism for debt service. And then there's rules for the insurance companies to turn around to their policyholders and start recovering a portion of those proceeds. That bill had no opposition, and it was likewise held in the Senate as Senator McGuire was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. Lastly, there was another bill, AB 1844 by Calderon, it dealt with FAIR plan composition, that was held as well. So the three FAIR plan bills, which, the FAIR plan certainly represents an existential threat for the insurance industry, they were all held. And then the two on community mitigation, one was an Assembly Bill 2416 by Damon Conley. Initially, our organization did oppose that bill, worked through some amendments, ultimately went neutral, and the bill was nonetheless held in the Senate. And then lastly, there was one Senate bill, SB 1060 by Josh Becker, that dealt with sort of community mitigation standards that companies have to abide by when they're considering the efforts by homeowners associations and cities and counties on fuel reduction projects, to include that in insurance companies' decision making. And the Senate itself restricted that bill pretty significantly, just because it wasn't really baked. They had a lot of work to do to make the bill make sense, and by the time it got over to the Assembly, it just lost momentum. So those are really the five bills. None of them moved through the legislature this year. And if you look at it, aside from the Becker bill, the other four had no opposition. So that was a head scratcher for sure. Senator McGuire, I think, didn't want to be limited to just those two topics and wanted to get into some of the issues that were implicated under the Insurance Commissioner's Sustainable Insurance Strategy. I don't think that was acceptable to the commissioner. I'm fairly certain it wasn't to the governor as well. And so with those impediments, Senator McGuire wasn't able to get momentum on something that would interfere with or even derail the commissioner's work. And so my sense of things is he just held those Assembly bills, and there was a bit of a stalemate. So happy to answer any questions about that, or I can certainly go into what's happening on the executive branch side, which is really where the action is.
Let's stop for just a moment and see if any of our LCMC members have any questions for you, Mr. Fraser, about those particular bills. I guess the obvious question for me is, anybody have any appetite for bringing any of those back next year?
My guess is, Don's hey, Don, been a long time. Good to see you.
So do they? Yes. Did you say? I didn't hear you.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to respond to Don,
Yeah.
but I think the Becker bill will be back in some form. That was sponsored by the Nature Conservancy and former Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones. A bit frustrating because Dave Jones did have 8 years to help us figure these issues out, and simply was uncooperative for the entirety of the 8 years and really set the stage for the situation we're in. So for him now out of office to be coming forward with ideas that are less than helpful, that's certainly regrettable. I would have to think Damon Conley would come back with his bill. It was a fine bill, and there was no opposition. And then I don't know what David Alvarez is going to do. I know he's incredibly frustrated with a bill that so many people put so much work into, and then it just dies for no real reason. So, but I would have.
And Rex, I know you're going to touch on the regulatory work, but and I think part of the consternation was like some of this can be done by the commissioner, but with the FAIR plan, and not to put you on the spot, but I believe like the issuance of the bond, it's not something that the commissioner can do unilaterally, right? Wouldn't the legislature have to authorize statutorily the issuance of the bond by the iBank? So that's not one they can say, hey, let the insurance commissioner do it.
Yeah, probably. I think there's some question as to what the authority of the iBank is presently, but we certainly wanted to clarify that now in advance of a situation where there's significant liquidity need for the FAIR plan. I would be loath to just cross our fingers and hope they could issue that debt, following a giant fire somewhere.
All right,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
And yes, I do see Supervisor Wagner has his hand raised, so we'll let him go now. Thanks.
Oh, you're muted.
Supervisor Wagner, you are muted.
There we go. Thank you, Rex, and good to see you again. I may be a little bit ahead of myself with this question because I think you're going to touch on some of the executive side of things in a few minutes. But, we have a resolution in front of us today. Yes, it's just a SCAG resolution. Orange County passed one, San Bernardino passed one, with Kurt Hagman pushing this quite appropriately to deal with the commissioner's efforts through the executive. Is there much hope? Is there really enough power there without hurting the industry irreparably? Or do we have to look to the legislature? Help me with that balance. Help me with what the commissioner really can do in terms of fixing some of the problems that we've got.
You bet. The commissioner has wide-ranging powers under a 1988 ballot measure called Proposition 103. That ballot measure not only established the elected insurance commissioner, previously it had been a governor's appointee, but allowed the commissioner singular control over the prices that insurance companies can charge. Prior to that ballot measure, California was what's called a file and use state. The company just files its rates and then starts charging them in the marketplace. Prop 103 turned California into a prior approval state, which means the insurance company cannot change its prices even downward without prior approval of the Department of Insurance. And so many of today's problems relate to the way the Department of Insurance has implemented its prior approval powers over the past 15 years. This is not a problem that's just a few years in the making. This has been a long time problem the state has been unwilling to address. And principally issues around the timing of those rate approvals, as well as the formula for rate approvals, that's wholly within the Department of Insurance's power. And the department and the legislature actually is restricted under the ballot measure in certain respects from changing that. Areas of the FAIR plan, as Steve noted, would benefit from legislative clarity. The FAIR plan wasn't created by Prop 103. It was created in the late 60s after the Watts riots as a reaction to insurance availability issues at that time, principally among small businesses. And so the FAIR plan exists outside of Prop 103. And so it being legislatively created, we certainly have advocated to both legislators and the Department of Insurance to fix some of the things that need to be fixed with the FAIR plan through the legislature. But as you could see from the earlier presentation or the earlier part, I mean, there were three FAIR plan bills and none of them ended up getting through the legislature, even though there was no registered opposition. So by and large, we would have preferred the entire sustainable insurance strategy be passed by the legislature last year in 2023. Recall what happened was around January or February of 2023, the governor sort of pulled us all into the governor's office and said, you ought to be talking and you ought to be solving these problems. And he was really the one who deserved credit for forcing all of us into the same room. Because when you're dealing with the executive branch, oftentimes it's not their first impulse to go to the legislature to ask for permission. Their first impulse is to regulate. And so they were fairly happy to continue on the path they were on, and the governor and his team pulled everybody in. And after many weeks of regular multi-weekly negotiation sessions, by June of 2023, there was a comprehensive legislative deal, reduced the Ledge Council language, and we were ready to move forward. And ultimately, the Senate was in all likelihood ready to move, but then the Assembly had the transition from Anthony Rendon to Robert Rivas for Speaker, and so you had a new leader, a new chair, a new staff trying to digest all this stuff, and that legislative package ultimately failed that year. It was just unfortunate timing the way that went down. And the principal objection from members of the Assembly was that, hey, Commissioner, you can do this yourself. Why don't you show courage instead of coming to us, asking us to bless what you can already do? Was really the attitude that they expressed. And so that's why when that package, this, what ultimately became the sustainable insurance strategy, that package failed. And so last September of 2023, the commissioner outlined his plan for doing so on an exclusively executive branch basis. The governor issued an emergency proclamation and encouraged the commissioner to do that, and away we went. So now we're in an environment where I think everybody would love the career staff at the department to be faster in drafting these regulations. I worked at the Department of Insurance, so I don't take lightly the responsibility that comes with putting these regulations together. I think the department staff has significant concerns about litigation, and they want to do this once. They want to do it right, so they're taking their what they perceive to be the due amount of time in order to get these regulations right. And obviously, in the meantime, we all are on the sidelines, saying please move faster. But I'm not going to criticize them for moving at the speed that they're moving. Every element of the sustainable insurance strategy that the commissioner outlined now has demonstrated concrete work that the department has revealed. And today there's a component subject to a public hearing, and they're telling us that by the end of the calendar year, they expect the regulations to be in place, which then would allow companies to start making filings under these new rules that would allow them to start growing in higher risk areas again. So our hope is, if they tell us by the end of the calendar year, the regs will be done, let's assume that'll slip. So let's assume by the end of Q1 of 2025, their regulations will be done and companies will be able to make filings in Q1 and Q2 of 2025. Then it's down to how quickly can the Department of Insurance process these filings. These things, they're under the Prop 103, they're supposed to take 60 days for review. Allstate was the last large homeowners insurance rate increase approved, and that was after 15 months, right? So we're nowhere near the 60-day review time. And so that makes it difficult, particularly in a highly inflationary environment, for companies to make a filing, and it could take a year or more to get a rate increase. And meanwhile, inflation has ripped into the effectiveness of that rate increase. So, companies' expectation is sometime towards Q3, Q4 of 2025, we could have some rate approvals under the new system. And you could see, hopefully, underwriting loosening, more eligibility under those filings towards the end of next year, because under the commissioner's approach, in order for companies to benefit from the new rules, they have to include as part of their filings how they'll maintain a presence in high wildfire risk areas, and their approach to depopulating the FAIR Plan, which is a desperately important, albeit to many boring issue, but it is really driving so many of our dynamics that the FAIR Plan has gone from its historical resting point of about 130,000 policies statewide to it's over 400,000 policies now, right? Which it's a canary in the coal mine kind of indicator. And when the FAIR Plan is double or triple its normal size, it shows you there's significant availability issues.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question, Don? Or?
Oh, exhaustively.
Oh, sorry.
And no, and I appreciate it. I think it teed up some of your later discussion. Real quick, if I may, a follow-up. And there's no appetite at this point that I've ever heard from anybody, but is it appropriate, or would it be helpful to maybe take a look and tinker with Prop 103 at the ballot box at some future time?
As you can imagine, many people have looked at that, and many political consultants have asked insurance companies to look at that. And the answer is largely there's no appetite to waste that money. It would be tens of millions of dollars, and who in their right mind would think you could go to the voters and say, give up your right to vote for the elected insurance commissioner? Polling indicates once you're able to vote for someone, you typically don't want to give that right up. So, and who's going to be open to saying we ought to loosen the restrictions on insurance company pricing practices? So, Prop 103, its effectiveness, it can be good or bad depending on how the Department of Insurance chooses to implement it. I think we've accepted that, and talking about changing Prop 103 is not really an agenda item for us.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rex.
You bet.
All right, thanks. And I know in the interest of time, we're going to have to move on, but Jan Harnick has a question.
Well, I have two, but I promise I'll be quick. One's kind of a statement, and that is, many people don't seem to understand that, and I don't know how we reconcile it. We need this insurance, but we have some of the lowest insurance rates in the nation, which just seems so incongruous to everything we know and everything we're dealing with right now. But my question is, how do what are the consequences of doing nothing? Because that seems like where we're going.
Yeah, well, doing nothing, the consequences would be dire. The state's largest insurance company in the property insurance market is State Farm. They write 21% of the premium volume. So giant participant, a fifth of the market. Last year in California only, because their property insurance company is a California only company. This is a historical issue dating back to when the California Earthquake Authority was created in the mid to late 90s. And so State Farm's California property insurance company last year, in California alone, last year alone, lost $930 million, right? Even for a company of that size, that gets the attention of Home Office, I assure you. So that's just not sustainable to have the state's largest company losing almost $1 billion a year. And so if that continues, lots of doom and gloom scenarios become realistic. And without that large market participant, imagine hundreds of thousands of homes all of a sudden don't have a source of insurance, and you have to go to the FAIR Plan. Well, that creates a spiral, because as the FAIR Plan grows, it becomes less likely to be able to pay its claims when the worst happens. And so if the FAIR Plan runs out of money, it goes to the insurance industry and says, please top me up. And under the California law, insurance companies must do so, right? So now you have another source of loss for the insurance companies, who have an unlimited obligation to back up the FAIR Plan. And so it creates an unvirtuous cycle where if the FAIR Plan starts depleting insurance company capital, more companies leave the market. That makes the FAIR Plan grow even more, and that increases the likelihood of continued assessments by the FAIR Plan. So doing nothing is going to lead us to a situation that is an existential threat. Now, on the bright side, there still are, the vast majority of insurance is sold through the regular marketplace. And as you noted, California continues to be, frankly, anomalous for a state with such high expenses, such high replacement costs. It's a below average premium state. I mean, it's so much more expensive for homeowners insurance in states like Louisiana, where it costs a fraction to rebuild a home of what it costs in California to rebuild that same home, right? So we've chosen a system where we keep prices lower, and there's an obvious consequence. In times of low inflation, companies could soldier on, but we're no longer in those circumstances. We have inflation that is causing a cascading series of negative events, and companies are just simply not able to continue absorbing these costs. So on the bright side, the Commissioner's Sustainable Insurance Strategy is real. It addresses the real issues. Of course, we wish it would be done more quickly, but that's the nature of the rulemaking process.
All right, thank you. Is that okay, Ms. Harnick, if we move on? All right. Okay, thanks. And Wendy, in the interest of time, can we have we've got kind of a lot covered today.
Really quick,
Okay.
I just wanted to add comment that the city of Mission Viejo really does support this, and we support this call to action. That is all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks very much. All right. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Frazier? Mr. Frazier, did you have anything you wanted to add to the presentation?
Nope, not at all. Just wanted to make sure as a resource for this group.
Perfect. We appreciate that. I know it's top of mind for many of us, as Ms. Bucknam just said. I mean, Riverside is going to be taking on insurance as one of its top legislative priorities this year. So this is very timely and appreciate that. All right. Thank you so much.
You bet. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see. Let's move on our agenda. So we have our public comment period, our general public comment period. So I'll open public comment for the meeting. Have we received any written public comments after the deadline of 5 p.m. on Monday, September 16th?
Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comments before or after the 5 p.m. deadline.
All right. And do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on items not listed on the agenda?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thanks very much. Okay, we will close public comment, move on, and anybody want to review or prioritize agenda items, or can we move on? Mr. Shapiro?
I was just going to move the consent calendar. I'm jumping ahead. Pardon me.
That's cool. You can do that. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
All right. Was that, did I hear Jose Luis Salache maybe? I didn't hear who that was. There he is. Yes, there he is. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Shapiro, Salache. There's 4 items on that consent calendar. So let's ask if there's any members of the public who want to speak on this item.
Madam Chair, I see no hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Okay, and so we have no public comments, no items pulled. So any members who wish to pull the item, any items? All right, then we're going to proceed on to voting.
Cindy Allen. Cindy Allen. Wendy Bucknam.
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Yes.
Keith Ike.
Yes.
Margaret Finlay.
Yes.
Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Laura Hernandez.
Yes.
Patricia Locke Dawson.
Aye.
Clint Lorimore.
Aye.
Ray Marquez.
Yes.
Gil Rebollar.
Yes.
Thank you. David Shapiro.
Yes.
Jose Luis Olache.
Yes.
Donald Wagner.
Wagner, aye.
Alan Wapner. Alan Wapner. Thomas Wong.
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 14 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the consent calendar.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for that. All right, moving on to item number 5. This is a discussion, this is an action item, and we're going to discuss a resolution to address California's marketplace for homeowners and commercial property insurance. So let me ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this item before we hear a staff report.
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thank you. So today we have a resolution to address the California's marketplace for homeowners and commercial property insurance. So staff's recommending we forward a recommendation to the Regional Council to adopt a resolution to address the California insurance crisis. So do we have, let's see, and we already did public comment, so I'm going to call on Francisco Barajas, our senior legislative analyst, to please provide a presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Lock Dawson, members of the LCMC. It is my pleasure to be with you all this morning to discuss item 5 on the agenda, a proposed resolution to address California's marketplace for homeowners and commercial property insurance. Next slide, please. As noted in the staff report, and as we just heard from Mr. Frazier, home and business property owners in the state of California continue to face the impacts from fluctuations in the insurance market. As recently as last year, insurance companies that represent over 27% of the insurance market in the state announced they would cease to sell new home insurance policies in the state. Additionally, announcements were made by other private insurance companies that they would be limiting new policy originations. As noted in the report, and as we just discussed, the California Fair Access to Insurance Requirements Plan, the risk pool created to act as a final resort to allow consumers time to shop for alternative insurance plans, has been experiencing excess stress, leaving in question its viability. While Insurance Commissioner Lara has made strides to remedy issues that are causing these impacts to the insurance marketplace, specifically with the passage of the Sustainable Insurance Strategy we just discussed, the majority of these reforms will not be going into effect for years. Seeking immediate collaborative solutions to this growing problem, various public agencies, including San Bernardino County, Orange County, City of Yorba Linda, and Orange County Council of Governments, have passed resolutions calling for the California Insurance Commissioner, state legislature, and the governor to exercise their existing authority and take emergency action to strengthen and stabilize California's marketplace for homeowner and commercial property insurance, taking into consideration the 5 policy goals that were outlined in the staff report. A copy of that resolution passed by the County of San Bernardino was included as an attachment in the report for your reference. This morning's item is being brought before you at the request of SCAG President Kurt Hagman, with a request for SCAG to join in these advocacy efforts and pass its own resolution. As is noted in the resolution, access to insurance not only allows existing homeowners to protect their investment, but allows for home buyers to secure a mortgage in the first place. A scarcity of options has the potential to freeze real estate transactions, as well as slow or even stop the development of new housing, including affordable housing projects, apartments, and condominiums. Addressing these impacts aligns with several items in our board-adopted state legislative platform, including supporting programs and legislation that expand the capacity to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing, and supporting efforts to expand access to home ownership, particularly for first-time homebuyers and communities of color. For these reasons, SCAG staff recommends that the LCMC forward a recommendation to the Regional Council to adopt the resolution as requested by President Hagman. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Francisco. Does anyone have any questions for Francisco? Jenny Crosswhite.
All right, I have a question. And I realize that there's an order of magnitude issue, and maybe that's part of it, but I was curious why renters insurance isn't also included at all in this conversation, because I know that I have personally known renters that, for the same reasons, and I realize that they're not the ones who would be replacing the house, but who have also struggled to get policies. And a lot of homeowners or apartment complexes will require you to have renter's insurance in order to be able to rent an apartment or rent the house, even though it's not covering the actual structure. And so I just want to make sure that we're not missing out on making sure that they're included in the conversation.
I don't have an answer for that. So Francisca, can you address that?
Yes, through the chair, the request was made by President Hagman for to join in the advocacy efforts for the resolution that the County of San Bernardino had passed. So I don't have an answer as to why the county had not included that. Certainly, if it is the will of the LCMC to include that as a recommendation, we could certainly pass that forward. And I know that the County of Orange themselves had likewise passed a resolution, and Chairman Don Wagner raised his hand. Perhaps he could speak to that as well.
Yeah, thank you. Chairman Wagner, can you speak to that?
Sure. Let me give it a try. We didn't include it. San Bernardino didn't include it. None of the entities have included renter's insurance. In part, it's my sense that the efforts here that Rex outlined with the FAIR plan don't go down to addressing the renter issues. As long as we can get the help that's needed at the higher levels, the building owners, the folks that are having trouble getting the fire insurance, et cetera, as long as we can get that help, I think it is sort of assumed that that second tier, the folks that Member Crosswhite recognizes aren't actually replacing buildings, et cetera, that there would then be an easing of the burdens on them if the issue gets fixed up at this higher level. That is an educated guess as to the reasons why it's not been included. I would defer to, say, Rex or President Hagman for more, but at the end of the day, the bigger problems and the insurance commissioner's abilities to fix them are, I think, at that higher level would be my estimate.
So it sounds to me, Supervisor Wagner, that you had a fairly robust discussion about this then, and that was the conclusion you came to. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. We did not have a discussion about the renters' side of things at all. In looking at the resolution and in thinking about my time up in the legislature dealing with these issues, Rex's discussion today, that is my assumption as to why the problem, the reso does not go down to the renter side of things. Whether it gets put into this resolution or not, whether that makes a substantive difference or not to the insurance commissioner and what he's able to do, I don't have any idea. I'm just offering an educated speculation as to why that aspect is not included in the reso.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Member Crosswhite, is that okay with you if it moves on without that, or would you make a recommendation?
I guess I don't know what the answer is. I know that things don't always, like, I don't know if if one automatically fixes the other or not. You know, I'm not an expert in that area. I just would want to make sure that that didn't get lost in the conversation. Because if someone owns a property and they want to rent it, if someone can't get rental insurance, then that becomes a secondary problem. So I don't know what the answer is. And I also know that a lot of times people who are on councils own property. So your boards or different things. And so if you're not a renter, you don't think about it. And that sometimes is why that happens too.
Yeah. It sounds like Chairman Wagner had at least some experience in the legislature where he's seen similar things come up through it. So I guess it's an educated guess that it would be covered by this, but if you would like to include a recommendation to include a line encouraging, the same treatment for renters insurance, we certainly could do that.
And Chair, if I may, we can certainly follow up if that is the recommendation by Member Crosswhite. We could certainly follow up with Rex and members of the industry to see what would be most appropriate and maybe include that at least a note on the impacts to renters insurance as it relates to the proposed resolution in the staff report that goes before the regional council to make sure that that issue is at least addressed and noted.
Okay. Well, when it comes time to make a motion, Member Crosswhite, perhaps you could make a motion with the inclusion of that. So we'll leave that there for the moment. I see Jan Harnick has her hand raised.
Thank you. It just seems like such a separate issue. And I don't see where the two blend together well. I think they both must be addressed, but it seems like very different issues. And I appreciate looking into it further and then coming back, because I think that's what needs to happen. As Member Crosswhite said, she's not an expert. Certainly, I'm not an expert, but they certainly seem like very different issues. So I'd like to take a look at them and have a better understanding of it.
Okay, and there's a possibility that we approve the resolution as written today with a come back to amend it after looking at
exactly
renters issue.
Yeah, I wasn't going to suggest that we not vote on it today, but I do suggest that we have more information to see where we can go with it.
Okay, is that a motion, Member Harnick?
Well, why not? Yes, it's a motion to accept the resolution that President Hagman has put forth. And additionally, please look into this deeper so that we can perhaps at another time address the renters issue or include it if it's appropriate.
All right.
Wagner, second.
Wagner, second. Shapiro, did you have your hand raised for comment or was that a
This is
second?
second, but it's fully to support this. This is
Okay.
very, very, very important to our entire region, not just a few cities. So definitely,
Okay.
definitely support.
All right, and just one last question before we go to a vote. So we had a motion by Harnick, second by Wagner, with the to approve with the intent to bring back a discussion of the renters portion of it and whether that could be amended at a later date. That was the motion on the floor. I do have a quick question for Francisco. Francisco, is this this is the resolution of the San Bernardino County? Would this be a resolution of SCAG then? Or are we going to rephrase this to be ours?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. We would take this resolution language and bring this forward at the RC with their agenda with the recommendation that they adopt that language.
Perfect.
So,
Okay.
tailored.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. I will ask our clerk please to take a vote.
Cindy Allen, Wendy Bucknam,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Keith Ike,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay,
Yes.
Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Clint Lorimore,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Yira Boyar,
Yes.
David Shapiro,
Yes.
Jose Luis Solache, Jose Luis Solache, Donald Wagner,
Aye.
Alan Wapner, Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 13 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the motion on item number 5.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for that. And a special thank you to Chairman Hagman as well, President Hagman, for bringing that forward. All right, next on our agenda is our legislative advocacy update. Let me ask if I will open public comment for this item. Do we have any speakers that wish to speak to this? Oh, sorry, Mr. Wong, is your hand raised?
Yeah, just before we move on from this item, I know we just passed the resolution or the recommendation for the resolution. But if there's anything else we can do besides passing a resolution that SCAG can engage on more substantively on the issue, maybe we can have staff explore if there are opportunities to include the topic of conversation around stabilizing the insurance market in other SCAG programming, or if there are other opportunities to join with the counties or others that are advocating in some way, shape, or form around the needed reforms in the insurance market. I think maybe we could take a more active stance on just making sure we get something done besides just passing a resolution. Just wanted to suggest that.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. And also I would add that I will be working with staff to look at legislation in the next year that this committee can take a role in either as sponsors or support. So to your point, the story continues after the resolution. So thank you. All right. Legislative advocacy update. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this?
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll close public comment and I'm going to call on David Angel, our legislative analyst. Please give us a presentation. Mr. Angel.
Good morning. Let me put up my slides and I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have a few important updates for this month's legislative advocacy update now that the state legislature is in recess and as we approach the 2024 general elections. First, I'm sure by this point you're all very aware of the Department of Housing and Community Development's RHNA reform report, which they published in April 2024. Related to that, AB 3093, which Nick brought up earlier, and AB 2597, both introduced by Assemblymember Chris Ward from San Diego, are sitting on the governor's desk pending his final action. And both of these bills propose making changes to the RENA process based on recommendations made in HCD's RENA reform report. To do our due diligence, SCAG has been requesting that the state hold discussions on HCD's report before the legislature introduces more bills based on it. And as part of these efforts, staff invited the Director of Housing and Community Development, Gustavo Velasquez, to join us at our November Regional Council meeting to discuss the report and field questions from board members. And I'm very excited to announce that Director Velasquez has agreed to attend the November Regional Council in person on November 7th, 2024. We're excited to host Director Velasquez and look forward to the November Regional Council meeting, which is sure to be very busy and have plenty of exciting discussions on the report. In addition to hosting Director Velasquez at the November 2024 Regional Council meeting, staff has also been engaging the state legislature on HCD's RENA reform report. And to be further proactive on the issue and ahead of the start of the next legislative cycle in 2025, SCAG sent a letter to the Senate and Assembly Housing Committee leadership requesting that they convene an informational hearing to go over the RENA reform report and its recommendations. This hearing would also allow an opportunity for the public to provide comments on the report before additional bills are introduced to implement other recommendations from the report, which were not covered by bills introduced in 2024. We would also request that your jurisdictions also send a letter to the state housing chairs and your legislators requesting this hearing if you would like, and we can provide our template, which I provided a picture of it on this slide. We'd be more than happy to provide our template so you can do that. And if anyone's interested, just let staff know and we'll send that out after the meeting. Moving on, I'm sure many of you are also aware of the infamous warehouse bill, AB 98, authored by Assembly members Eloise Gomez Reyes from Colton and Juan Carrillo from Palmdale, and introduced through a gut and amend process just days before the legislature's deadline to pass bills in 2024, and now sits on the Governor Newsom's desk waiting final action. As a quick refresher, AB 98 would prohibit cities and counties from approving new or expanded logistics uses unless they meet specified 21st century warehouse standards, requiring cities and counties to update their circulation elements to include truck routes, which for San Bernardino and Riverside counties would have to be updated just 1 year after the bill would be implemented in January 2025. So the reports for the updated circulation reports for those two counties would be due in January 2026, giving them only 1 year to do that. And it would also impose study requirements on the South Coast AQMD. At the September Regional Council meeting, Executive Director Kome Ajisa brought up this bill and informed the board that SCAG would be taking an opposed position on it without going through the usual process through the Legislative Committee and the Regional Council, given that the agency would be unable to adopt the position until the October Regional Council meeting, which is after the governor's deadline to sign or veto bills on September 30th. And staff undertook this effort under direction from Chair Locke Dawson and President Hagman, and after conducting a thorough analysis on the technical and legislative aspects of this bill, we recommended that the agency adopt an opposed position and sent a letter to the governor requesting that he veto AB 98. We have included a letter, the letter that we sent to the governor in the staff report, if you would like to take a look at it. But additionally, I don't have a slide for this next update, but just quickly, I wanted to also let the committee know that we also sent a letter to the governor requesting that he sign AB 761 by Assembly Member Friedman into law, which is also on his desk. And seasoned members of the LCMC may recall that the agency adopted a position on this bill in April 2023, and AB 761 would extend the time period that enhanced infrastructure finance districts in LA County for zero emission mass transit projects specifically may exist to 75 years, so they could match the statutory term of a federal TIFIA loan, allowing LA County to leverage TIFIA loans more effectively. And that concludes my update. I'm available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised via Zoom from members of the public and no members of the public in person.
All right, how about anybody? Okay, we got a couple members. Mr. Wong.
Sorry, I think Wendy had it up first.
It's okay.
I just had a question on, if I should know this, I apologize already, but the SCAG, have we already taken positions on any of the statewide ballot measures? Or we're not engaging on those at all?
Through the chair, we have not taken a position on the ballot measures. I believe Francisco may have some more specific information on taking a position on ballot measures, if you'd like to provide that information, Francisco.
Through the chair, yes. As part of our receive and file item today, we did provide background on each of the ballot measures that we do annually as part of, to educate the board members as to what those positions are. We could certainly answer any questions we have. Crew Strategies here who provided that to answer any of those questions. We have historically not taken positions on ballot measures as there are limitations to what we could legally do to advocate for them. Again, as a public agency, we are allowed certainly to educate, which is why we included them under the receive and file.
Does that make sense, Mr. Wong?
I don't want to open a can of worms, but there is one statewide proposition, Prop 5, right, that would lower the public infrastructure or the affordable housing and public infrastructure bond vote threshold that I think would be of interest to a lot of members of SCAG. I don't know that we need to take a position at SCAG, but maybe this is something worth highlighting through some communication. I know we don't have an October regional council meeting, but I don't know if many local elected officials are aware of this potential opportunity that will impact local governments' ability to be able to bond to build affordable housing and public infrastructure, right? I found that of tremendous interest myself and look forward to the outcome of the election in November as a potential opportunity for us to pursue this avenue afterwards. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. And I saw Darren, you had your hand raised for a moment. Did you want to chime in on that and the ability to take position?
If it's okay with you, Chair, just a little context and to build on what Francisco said. Yes, generally SCAG has not taken positions on propositions. There are a few exceptions, certainly when it's so critical to the work that we do on transportation and housing and has a direct relevance to it. We have taken a position, but as Francisco articulated, it is limited as to how much advocacy we can do around propositions. But certainly when it is important and that we think that our voice on a proposition is relevant, that certainly there is precedent for that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that context. Wendy Bucknam.
Thank you. I understand that our executive director personally reached out to the HCD director directly on this, and to ask him if he could meet with our regional council members in person at our November meeting and really talk about the HCD RENA reform report. And I just want to extend a huge, great big thank you and job well done on getting the HCT director to meet with us in person. I really appreciate that, and I know, and we asked for that, and I just want to give a shout out to the team for making that happen, especially our executive director. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. We'll pass that along.
Thank you. And Mr. Wong, I might suggest that you meet with a member of our team, either Darren or Javiera or Kevin, just for some additional information regarding your questions about the proposition support.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other questions for David. Thank you, David. And we're going to move on our agenda. So now we've got 3 remaining items. We've got our Government and Public Affairs Division update, our future agenda items, and announcements. So we'll go ahead and open public comment for those 3 items. Do we have any public comment for those 3 items?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thank you so much. So we're now going to move on to our Government and Public Affairs Division update. Ms. Cartagena Javiera, please give us an update. Then welcome back from Oslo. I think that's where you were.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Javier Cartagena here. Just a couple of updates today. Registration is still open for our 2024 demographic workshop. We hope that you will join us on September 24th from 9 to 3. This is our annual event that's co-presented by us and the USC Sol Price School of Public Policy. We have almost 500 people signed up and about almost 100 people coming in person. So that's really exciting about how this event has grown over the years, and we've made it possible to now have it in a hybrid manner. So that's very exciting. The theme of this year's event is the new growth reality and looks at how our new rates of slower population growth will affect regional planning. And it also coincides with the U.S. Census Bureau's release of the new American Community Survey data for 2024. So getting a lot of attention on that, and please be sure to register on our website. And if you want to come into the office, we'd love to have you as well.
And the date, Javiera, sorry?
24, the 24th
of
next week.
Okay, thank you.
So I've gotten a couple of comments on this. As you heard at the Regional Council earlier this month, there is a notable change for the Southern California Economic Summit this year that we sponsor and that we host. Because of the holiday schedule conflicts in October and January, the Regional Council will meet in December, a time that is traditionally reserved for the SCAG's annual Economic Summit. So we will not be abandoning the Economic Summit. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. But the agenda for the December Regional Council meeting will incorporate the economic analysis that we often produce for the Economic Summit, and we will also have our regular SCAG business. So I think this format will allow us to have more discussion among the Regional Council members about the analysis, and it'll be a little different this year. And we will be resuming our event in 2025. So hopefully that answers some of the questions that I got over the last few weeks, but I wanted to make sure that you received that update. On another note, I was honored to join First Vice President Cindy Allen on a transportation electrification study trip that was organized by the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, or LACI. The California delegation included Transportation Secretary Tokso Mishakin, California Air Resources Board Chair Leanne Randolph, and California Energy Commissioner Patty Mohanan. We met with dozens of influential partners, businesses, elected officials in London, Oslo, and Munich. And I very much look forward to sharing our learnings in the upcoming months and as we seek to accelerate progress on transportation electrification, especially in our region, and especially as we welcome the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games in just 4 years. It was a grueling 10 days, lots of presentations, and I look forward to sharing more information with you all on that trip. So lastly, wanted to mention that with the legislature wrapping up for the year and Congress following suit shortly, we'll be taking the next few months with the LCMC to focus on preparing for the start of the next year. We have a lot of things coming. We will be discussing the surface transportation reauthorization priorities. We'll be reviewing our state and federal legislative platforms, and a lot of, things coming up, post-election as well, coming this November. So a lot of going on in our LCMC, and as a reminder, we will be dark in the month of December. I hope that you all have some time to rest. We've had quite a year. It's not over. I can't believe it's September, but I welcome any questions now, any comments, and that will be the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Javiera. Any questions for Javiera? All right, thank you. Thanks, appreciate that. All right, next up we have any future agenda items. So does any LCMC member want to suggest any items for future agendas? Any of our committee members? Not seeing anybody. Perfect. All right. How about any announcements from any of our committee members? Anybody have anything, all the news that's fit to print? Anybody have anything good they'd like to share? All right, perfect. What I would like to do is thank staff for organizing the trip to the port, even though it was on a holiday weekend. That was a lovely trip. We had a really, it was incredibly informative for me. And I know Member Crosswhite was there, and Rocky Rhodes came with us, and a few other people. So I think Laura Hernandez was also there. And we certainly learned a lot. And I, as a member of AQMD, it was really incredible to see the difference between the ports of Los Angeles and LA with Ventura, how different it was. So I just wanted to thank staff. That was a big, heavy lift, and appreciate that. And other than that, I think we're good. I did want to thank, I don't think he's on anymore, but Jose Luis Salate for covering me last month. I was out, but appreciate that he ran the meeting. And all right, I think that's it. We are adjourned, and we will see you all next week at the Demographic Summit meeting. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.